Welcome to the Resilient Butterfly Podcast. My goal is to share inspiring stories of healing and recovery through many diverse approaches and models. Our guests bring incredible lived experiences, insights, and/or professional expertise, each with their own unique path. While we highlight and celebrate these stories, our intention is to inform, inspire, and demonstrate resilience and creativity. This podcast does not endorse any one approach. We believe there is more than one way to heal, and we're here to showcase the resilience and possibilities that exist. Welcome to Resilient Butterfly. My name is Pam Feinberg-Rifkin, your host. And today, as my guest, I'm so excited to have with me Brad Walsh, who, as a young boy, started drinking alcohol, and just really had a challenging life up until 2021, where he was intervened on by Feinberg Consulting. And we will talk about how that all went. And we'll start with really his tiny life as a boy. Brad is bigger than life and just full of so many things to be able to express and talk to us about. So I'm excited. Thank you, Brad, for coming.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Pam. Glad to be here.
Sure. And just so everyone knows, Brad is in Costa Rica. He used to live in Chicago, and throughout this transition of his life, he has decided to be in Costa Rica living, and that's part of the story. So, Brad, as a young boy, you started drinking alcohol at the age of 12, and what inspired you to take that first drink?
I don't know what it was that inspired me to take the first drink. I know that my family, we're Irish. It's Walsh. We're an Irish heritage. We're pretty proud of our drinking. It was around in all the family occasions. Again, I don't think it was my parent. I didn't think it was the cool thing to do. I just thought it was the adult thing to do. It was the next thing to do. Everyone drank. Any kind of activity. It was a funeral, we drank. A birthday party, we drank. Graduation, we drank. it was just anything. So it just seemed logical. It just was the next thing. But there was no one, kind of encouraging me. I was the one doing the encouragement.
Were you drinking behind everyone's back? Was it a secret?
Yeah, well, it started off my folks only drank beer in the house, but they had a liquor cabinet underneath the basement, underneath in the cubby hole, and I knew where it was. So that's where it started. A box of booze, and I think I went through the whole box in a year. It was the typical. You drank some, you filled it back up with water.
The trick. Did you have other friends that were drinking with you?
Yeah, in my mind, I was certainly the ringleader, because I had the box of booze, and at that time that was the place to get it. But yeah, it was all my friends started drinking with me, for sure.
And where did that alcohol at the age of 12, how much were you drinking, and where did it start to lead to?
Well, I would say that my drinking took off very fast. I'm a pretty smart kid, and whenever I didn't have to use my brain and I could get away with kind of screwing off, I would. So that was anytime. And like I said, it picked up quick. I'm not sure what age 12 is, but I know it progressed, and I did get caught drinking in school in 6th grade. So, it kind of took over. And I loved it. It was an instant love. I thought it made everything better.
In your mind, so you were caught drinking in 6th grade. Obviously your parents were called. I would assume your parents were called, and they were aware at that point. Were there any changes in that alcohol intake, or did it escalate or reduce or?
At that time, it wasn't Chicago, it was on the opposite side of the state. So Galena, Illinois, which is really small, 3,600 people.
Okay.
So my class in sixth grade, I think, was 75 people. So yeah, it was a big deal. This was the science teacher. He was the head of student council. So he brought us, the six bad kids, all the parents in. I mean, we had a discussion. And at that time, it kind of in my mind was the teacher was Mr. Small, but I think that he thought they nipped it in the bud. He caught it before it happened. He brought all the people together. He explained, the problems, what it could lead to. And in my mind, I didn't hear any of it. I heard, I got caught this time. What do I have to do better next time to not get caught? So in my mind at that point, it wasn't a mental decision. I didn't say I was going to go down the bad road, but I didn't go for student council. I didn't start going playing sports. I went for drinking and I just went towards that side. So I kind of made up my choice in sixth grade that, partying was that's who I was. That's who I was going to be. So yeah, it was a big deal. But I think it didn't change anything. I know it didn't change anything for me. I wasn't done.
So, did it change anything for your friends, or they just followed you along the same way?
I would say at that time, so sixth grade, seventh and eighth grade, Galena was a huge football school. So at seventh grade, you could start playing football for the school, be a part of the team. I mean, blue and white ran the town. That was the school colors. And a lot of them chose to play the football route and went the football route. I did not go the football route. So my friends did change. And then, like I said, Galena was a very small school, and it sets you up. Seventh grade football, eighth grade football, you're in high school. I mean, that's what the school is about in my mind. So at that time, I decided how can I get away from Galena? And that's when I went to Dubuque, which was a school a half an hour away across the river in Iowa, the big school, and then that got me out of my small town. So
was that your choice? You wanted to do that, and your parents went along with you?
Yes, my parents did give us the choice. So it was stay in Galena and be a part of that, or it was a private Catholic school. So they did give us that option, with the caveat in my parents' mind was it was a bigger school, private. It would be better to get into private colleges and so forth. So in my parents' mind, it was an opportunity to further my education. For me, it was the big ticket to the big city. I could get farther away from Galena. I get more space, more time, so it was, in their mind, I would think it was a great decision to set him up for college. And in my mind, it was, whoa, I can't wait. I don't even know what the big city has to offer. And that was a choice of mine. So, and it was it was a big deal because, I mean, you were leaving all of your 75 closest people in Galena. You were leaving that crew and you were branching out. So it did create a wall. Whether that was imaginative or not, there was a wall in between those friends and new possibilities.
Sure. And you just hung out with the other new crowd that at the private school.
Well, honestly, at this time, there was a lot going on with me. About in that time, I was also skiing competitively. So I was traveling every weekend to ski, and that even opened up more doors because now I was hanging out with kids in Madison, Wisconsin, and in Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So I was traveling every weekend, and I got to really hang out with the top athletes from all the different areas, and we'd all
Mm.
I mean, it was a party. It was a ski school. I mean, it was a party. Every weekend we had a race on a different mountain, but we just party, and go to a different town. So I didn't really even hang out with the people at the new school because I was a new kid. And yet I was too cool for the old school. So I was terribly lonely. And then my friends that I had that I partied with on the weekends were all great and were my best friends, but that was only Friday, Saturday,
Sure.
half a Sunday because we had to drive back home from school. So ultimately, I was creating all of these absolutely fantastic friendships with certain people, but they weren't friendships. They were more surface level. They were acquaintances.
Mm-hmm.
And 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 really, the drinking continued, and it was daily, and here I was not having connections or friends with anybody, but going around and everybody loved Brad Walsh, and coming, and it was just like the party started, but then I would leave and they wouldn't see that I had a week of just, I was lonely. I was just lonely, and booze was my best friend, and it seemed to lubricate everything, it helped me be the person that I wanted to portray to everybody else.
Sure. And you went off, did go to college though, right? At some point?
So yeah, we're kind of jumping around, and that's fine, but yeah, I ended up, I got in trouble. I didn't end up graduating from that school. I got a couple OWIs, and then I transferred to a boot camp up in Montana, and I was there.
How old were you there at the boot camp?
It was a year and a half. So it was the summer between my sophomore and junior year.
Mm-hmm.
And I got set. It was between the state and my folks. And basically they had the opportunities that it's either death, jail, or this boot camp. And my parents just said, boot camp, So I went to that boot camp from 16 and a half to 18. I did not graduate the boot camp. The school, the rehab, whatever you want to call it. At 18, I got a ticket and I went straight to Arizona State. At that time, because I didn't graduate, my folks wouldn't let me come back home, and there was no financial assistance. So the school, it was either you graduate the school or you get one bus ticket to wherever you want.
Really? That was from your parents?
That was from the school.
Oh, from the school. Okay.
The school had a zero. I mean, if you didn't graduate, work your way up through the rehab program, you couldn't leave on good terms. If you didn't leave on good terms, they would give you one bus ticket. That was it. So at 18, it was colder than heck in Montana. I was like, I'm going to ASU, because at the time, ASU was ranked the #1 party school in the nation.
Of course it was, yeah.
Straight to ASU.
But you didn't graduate. How would you have been able to get into ASU?
I didn't graduate the program. So the program was a rehab program.
Got it.
But you could take school it was like basically like you took school at nighttime through online. So I did graduate high school. I didn't graduate the program.
Got it. Okay.
So with that agreement, I could get into college. Like I said, I have good grades. I mean, school wasn't difficult for me, so I was able to get into ASU. Got down to ASU. I had nothing.
How did you even pay for tuition? You didn't have any or live.
So my folks helped with school. They had to pay for everything because I didn't have any money. I don't know. I honestly don't know. But I know I couldn't go home, and so I went to ASU. My parents did pay for college. That was part of the thing. My mom was the first person to graduate from her family from college. So big deal for our family.
Sure.
Is to
Education.
Go to college, So education they would pay for, but it was like they would help me pay for it, but I didn't have their blessing or something like this. I'm not positive, to tell you the truth, but that's where I went. ASU did not last long. I mean, that went from rehab, absolutely no contact with the outside world. I mean, they didn't let us have cell phones, you couldn't watch TV, couldn't read the newspaper, couldn't call anybody, to now I'm at ASU.
Wow.
And I can have whatever I want, you know?
That's
So
a
it's like,
huge, then you were there a year and a half. That's a long time.
I was in Montana for a
Right,
year and a half at
right.
that rehab, in the middle of nowhere, in little boats, and my little crew, we had to walk in lines. I mean, we couldn't look at girls, we couldn't talk on the phone. I mean, it was a boot camp, you know. That to ASU was a big change.
So were you alcohol free at the boot camp completely for a year and a half?
Yes, 100%. It was so in the middle of nowhere. It was Thompson Falls, Montana, which is literally in the middle of nowhere. So, I mean, the school was, they locked your shoes up at night. I mean, they locked you. I mean, it was a boot camp. You were in the middle of nowhere. You couldn't run. You couldn't run. There was people that tried, and they ended up in Mexico or in Russia. But yeah.
Jeez.
It was a real deal. It was the real deal boot camp.
Wow.
And but yeah, I went from there to ASU, and then ASU, honestly, it was too big. I mean, I was drinking way too much, and I mean, waking up in Mexico, waking up in Las Vegas. I mean, it was like it was scary, and that lasted for 6 months, for one semester. I didn't even think I went to class. But yeah, then I had to go home. My parents, that's the reason I had to go home. My parents said they're not paying for college anymore if I'm not going. So I moved home.
Fair enough. What happened when you moved home?
So when I moved home, I still didn't care. So I lost my license at 16 or 17. I didn't have a license, moved to Arizona, came back. I really didn't care. I wasn't giving up drinking, but I didn't have a license. So it was like, I'm not drinking and driving, so it doesn't matter, you know? And then I was at the defiant stage where this is who I was, and I'm just going to make it work. It got even lonelier because at that time, all my friends were starting to go to college. And then here I was back at home, a loser with nothing. Then my father allowed me to get a job with him and my uncle. And I started working at the gondola train, living in my parents' basement and working. That was it. I would say progression, I still wasn't giving up drinking, but it progressed. And my mom was just like, you know, Brad, I worked and I went to school nighttime. You know, I did it and I had kids. You can do this. I know you don't know what you want to do with your life, but the school that she went to was offering, you know, like tuition, like a discount for, you know, alumni. So I was able to get into the time saver program at Clark, which is a local college. And I went to school from 5 to 10 at night, working for my dad and my uncle from 8 to 4 and then 5 to 10 at night. And I just did that. I just did that. And again.
And you were drinking all through work and school?
Absolutely. Drinking. I mean, that was, so after a little while of working full time, I was working full time and going to school. I ended up getting a couple other jobs working. I was a server, a bartender. So I had 3 jobs and I was going to school. So I had money and I was just drinking whenever I could get away with it. So I was drinking at work. I was drinking at school, definitely drinking at school. But, you know, at the same time, I was, in my mind, I could fool myself and be a functional alcoholic. You know, like that is what I hung my hat on. I could be loaded and I could go to class, I could ask good questions, and I could, you know, I could be there, be present.
I just read something about a question, you know, what is a functional alcoholic? You know, and in our world, everyone says, well, it's an alcoholic that can go through work and family, et cetera, et cetera. And what are the downsides of what were you leaving out of your life by being just a functional alcoholic?
Well, I mean, that is ultimately the culmination, and I know we got time, but we'll just shrink it down. I mean, ultimately, um, that was the question that I was asking myself. I mean, it was like, yeah, I was doing it. I was getting drunk all the time. I graduated school. I was working. Like I was doing all those things, but at the end of the day, I was miserable. I was so broken on the inside. I mean, and so I struggled with that for a long time as a functioning alcoholic because again, it was my identity. So I that's what I hung my hat on. I was the alcoholic. I was the person that could drink 60 beers and wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and work out and then go to work. I could do that. But I wasn't my best. I wasn't operating at my best. I could do it. And that's who I was. So to answer your question, a functioning alcoholic is someone who can, on the outside, it looks like they got it all together and is a member of society. I would say that that's my definition. I don't know.
So for those that are listening that are in the position that you have been in, what would you say to them in regard to being a functional alcoholic? What are they missing?
So, and actually, this answer is starting to come to me. So, I mean, it's something that I'm still working on. But a lot of times when I was going, this is the perfect example. So I have a therapist that I see, and she would always, Linda, and Linda would always ask me, she's like, Brad, why are you running so fast? And she's like, in my experience, whenever I see someone running that fast, they're either running towards something or running from something. And I couldn't answer that question. I said, I'm not running. There's not one goal that I need to get. There's not one thing that I'm just running because that's the only thing I know how to do. And I'm not running from anything either. So why am I running? And that's the question. It's like, if I'm filling up all my time doing things, getting drunk, blah, 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 what about me? And so I would really say, slow down a little bit and pause. I gotta pause. Pause for a minute and ask yourself some questions of why are you running so fast? And for me, it was because I was scared of silence. I was scared of sitting alone. I was scared of all those things. So for me, I was running from fear. I was just scared of everything. I was scared. I didn't know who I was. But when you're in that cycle, you don't know. It's so hard. So I don't know how you get yourself out.
So you did get married at one point. How was that even possible as an alcoholic, or was that part of just life?
Well, to me, honestly, when I look back at it, it was just that's what was next. That was what was expected of me. It's like you get a job, you get a wife, you complain about your wife, she's always nagging you down, you have some kids, and that's what you do. And for me, it's like that's kind of the process. It was a great excuse. She wasn't a drinker, so it's like she made me not look like such a drinker, and I could hide behind it. And I think it was all for show, it was just all for, I'm okay, I'm okay. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Right.
And it was short lived. I think it was a 12-month marriage. So, I mean, it didn't work. When I just remember, it's like I would have a workout bag in the bathroom. I'd come home and put the workout bag in the bathroom. And I remember the one that I would go in to brush my teeth and I'd slam vodka and come back and go to bed. And she's, what is going on with you? And so she found out, and it's just like it was awful. It was a brutal. It was just it was a mess. It was just a mess.
And you were
And
still working with your dad and your uncle at the same time, right?
yeah, at some point in there, my uncle left. He retired, and then it was just me and my dad. So yes, it was just me and my dad working. And I was actually the first one of my siblings to get married. So I mean, it was one of those surprises, like, wow, maybe he is growing up. And I mean,
Yeah.
again, it was just one of those things. I young and stupid, and but I thought I was in love. I mean, I thought that's what I wanted, and I thought that she could potentially change me, or
And she
whatever.
probably thought she could change you. That happens a lot as well.
Yeah, probably so. And at the end of the day, I mean, it's just there's a lot of hurt that happened because of the drinking that I was doing. I mean, and I think that's a shame of the whole thing. I mean, I've always thought that drinking was just me. Just leave me alone. I'm not driving anymore. Just leave me alone. I'll get as wasted as I want. And the problem is, it's just like you affect so many people, and it's carnage. It's just carnage.
Sure. It's hurtful for families and loved ones because for them to watch it, they know the potential in you. They knew the potential in you. So you did put yourself in rehab at some point in Wisconsin?
Yeah, so I found out about this rehab, and it's up in the Green Bay area. Essentially, it was a close knit bunch of people, and they bought this gazillionaire's house, and they had their rehab in there. It was, and the reason I put that in there was I just wanted to show that it's like, to me, my ego was running the whole thing. And again, it's like, I'm a functional alcoholic. I'm gonna pay for my rehab. I'm gonna quit because I said I'm ready, and all this malarkey. And the thing is, I did go to rehab, and I stayed for 30 days. And I thought after 30 days, I showed them. I stayed clean for 30 days. I'm good. They wanted me to stay. I'm not spending any more money. I'm fixed, and it's just, I put it in there just so you could see that the ego was running the whole show. And yeah. So I did go to rehab, and I was very proud that I paid for it out of my own money, and I was getting clean by myself. And it was nice. I mean, it was a glimpse. And actually, it was really scary because, like, the first 3 days was the first time I had been sober in ever, and I blacked out. I don't remember what happened those first 3 days. And they were saying I fell down the stairs. I was standing on the toilet. I knocked over. I mean, it was like, I don't remember it, but it was the first time I was cleaned out. My body was cleaned out since I was 12, I would think. So, yeah.
So you got a glimpse of what it could be. How did it feel during the time that you were sober?
So when I first started dancing around sobriety, the biggest thing for me was the FOMO, the fear of missing out, and that just drove me nuts. It was like, I was there for 30 days, and how many parties did I miss, and how many 30, and it was just like, it was killing me. And again, I was struggling with my identity. So it's like, I affiliated me hanging out with other people, having a good time. That was it for me, So it was, honestly, it just drove me nuts because it was like, it just reminded me how much I liked party life.
So when you got out, you started drinking right away?
I don't know. I can't recollect if it was right away. I would imagine it was within a week. I mean, honestly, the what would make it was whenever I could get away with it.
Sure.
That was the absolute truth. I mean,
So
I would think there were enough to pass.
as much as you were drinking from the age of 12 until you went into rehab then, or maybe even more recently in 2021, what year was that when you first went to rehab? Do you remember the year?
Oh, shoot, I do not know. I would say probably, no, I don't know. I don't know. 19, 18,
Okay. So I lost my train of thought here. Did you have physical symptoms in your body? And were there tests done to show that maybe you had fatty liver or you had any type of physical symptoms related to the chronic use of alcohol?
Yeah. So towards the end of 20, before the intervention, I was working a trade show in Chicago, and I drank the night before, but I didn't drink that day. So I was at Chicago, 5 o'clock in the morning, setting up the show. At 3 o'clock, we left the show because our booth is set up. And I was walking out of the show, and there's 30,000 people walking out of the show, walking out, and I just fainted. Blacked out, boom, dropped in the middle of everybody. But I was so lucky that there were so many people that there was cross guards there, and there was a guy picked me up, had me in the hospital, and I was in the hospital within like 5 minutes. So I had a seizure. Yes, honestly, when I got tested, I had a toenail fungus, and I went in to get a toenail fungus medicine. And to get a medicine for toenail fungus, they had to test your blood. Well, when they tested my blood to give me this medicine, they said, absolutely not, you can't do this. Your liver enzymes are through the roof, and they showed me the three, and are you an alcoholic? And I'm like, I drink, but I'm just a heavy drinker, and they're like, no, that's you're, and I remember it being tense, but I didn't care. It was like I didn't care. And I remember my dad was in the room with me because it was his doctor that gave me the report. He's like, dude, if you don't stop drinking, you're gonna die. You're gonna die. And everybody's gonna die, like who cares, And sad. It's sad to say that, but I mean, I didn't care. So yeah, there was physical things. I mean, I still have trouble with balance. I mean, I lost my balance when I was at Karen. They did test me for all, the brain, stuff. And there were certainly things that were missing. My liver enzymes have come back. But yeah, it was pretty scary.
Yeah. Yeah, as an alcoholic, you tend to not believe that it's still so detrimental to your well-being, and let alone your life and death situation. And it's just one of the unfortunate consequences of being an alcoholic. You have blinders. You don't really see something that everyone else is pointing out to you on.
Well, the thing was, I knew I was an alcoholic. I knew I was a heavy drinker. I didn't care. My honestly, and this is really disgusting, but it's like, I thought that if I worked hard enough, I could make enough money, I could buy another liver. I mean, that was a logical next step for me. It was just like, I know I'm going to burn through this one. I'm probably going to burn through it faster than, by 50, I'm going to need a new liver for sure,
And
So
you were going to
like,
buy a liver. Wow.
that was it,
Yeah.
I mean, and that's how twisted things could get. Because to me, when I hear that now, it's like, who do you think you are? And it's embarrassing to say it, but
Yeah.
at that time, it was just that's what had to happen for me to continue.
So did your seizure lead up to when was that actually before the intervention? How soon before
I would say that would have been a couple months. So after that happened, again, after it happened, my mom, after the nurse told everybody it's because I was drinking, I said, Mom, I didn't drink. I hadn't drank in that day. It's not because of the booze. I don't know what it is. Well, it was because the booze is out of my life.
Right,
and
right.
again, so it's what you tell yourself. So
You didn't do a safe detox. You just stopped
yeah,
drinking and seizures. Yeah.
so in my mind, it was just like, okay, I got to keep going. And I think the seizure was the red flag in my mom's mind that something had to change. I don't know if it was a few months, 6 months before, but it was definitely one of the catalysts that happened to get this intervention.
Do you know how long the family, and I haven't asked the team how this all was put together and the intervention. So whatever you're comfortable in describing and what you do know or remember, that would be really great for people to actually have it firsthand from somebody that went through an intervention. And how long were what did before the family contacted Feinberg Consulting?
I don't know anything about that. So I'll just talk about my experience.
Sure.
My experience was on Saturday morning. My mom was like, "Hey, Brad, stop at the office. We got some stuff to go over."
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Okay, no big deal." Just jumped out into my truck, drove to work. And when I got to work, who was in the conference office? Some guy. Both my sisters from Montana and Colorado, my parents, and one of my close girlfriends were all sitting at the conference table. I was just like, I thought you wanted to work today. If we're going to party, why didn't what? Well, it wasn't a party. They sat me down. They said, they all read their letters, and I was through the roof. I was mad. I don't remember the guy's name. I want to call him Bob Anderson, but I don't remember that. But I just remember who is this guy telling me what I have to do, and he's got my parents on my side, and I was so angry. I was just angry. I felt all alone. I felt backed in the corner. So the intervention for me was not pleasant. It sucked. And I remember I was like, and they gave me a hard line, right? I mean, they said, "You got to go. This is it. I'm going." And I left. Mm-hmm. I left. I left the office. I went home, and I just started thinking about it. And my parents, and I'm not ashamed of this because I'm in the program, and a lot of times how you get there is you could get a note from the judge, and it's like however you get there doesn't matter.
Right.
My parents were going. I only had one thing in my life, and that was work. It was my job. It was everything, And my parents said that if I didn't clean up, I could no longer work for them. Mm-hmm. And I mean, how could they take that away from me? I worked hard. I mean, I earned it. So begrudgingly, I said, I'll go. And
how long after you had left did you actually decide to go?
I think it was a week. Uh-huh. I think it was a week. It was definitely 4 or 5 days. Mm-hmm. And then when I made the call, there was another 3 or 4 days to whatever. So it was probably a week and a half from the intervention till when I jumped on the plane. Yeah, and for me, okay, so I've been to the Montana boot camp. I've been to the rehab. So it's like I can do this. Mm-hmm. And at that time, again, Pam, I'll be honest, I wasn't done. This was just another thing for me to appease, so I could whatever I have to do to keep working. Whatever I have to do. So, but I went. And then I was down in Karen. So that was the first Karen rehab that I ever been to. The boot camp wasn't even a rehab. That was a boot camp.
Yeah.
And the rehab that I went to in Wisconsin was so posh. I mean, we had a 5-star personal chef all day, 24 hours a day.
You want the best.
Yeah, whenever you wanted anything. And then Karen was like, okay, you get $100 a week and you have to buy your groceries, So it was, honestly, it humbled me. It broke me. And it made me aware of how easily things can be taken away, And with that realization, that was one change that happened. It was, I said to myself, I will never be in a position where someone, if they don't like the way that I live, can take away from me just because they don't like it. And whether it be right or wrong, it's one of those things that it changed me. It was definitely against my will. I definitely got pushed, but I didn't. I was so caught up in the anger and the blackout. I mean, I was just a mess that I couldn't see. And what Karen gave me the opportunity to see is that I'm not, I don't, no one owes me anything, no one owes me a thing. And it just made everything real, and whether that be from the staff at Karen, being with the people at Karen, like just actually talking to people. I mean, I was so young. I mean, I remember going to Karen, and again, we haven't even talked about the good part of this,
We're getting there. We're getting.
Yeah, but it's like I seen things that I didn't see. I've never seen. Like guys that were out of brown paper bags shooting heroin. I mean, it was like things can get
Real.
really bad.
Yeah.
And that's when I just started this. I mean, I had everything back home, and here I am down in Florida with nothing, and essentially I'd start my life and build it back, and
how long into treatment at Karen do you think you started to accept that this is a way of life that would improve your life?
I wasn't at Karen. It was long after Karen.
Long? Okay.
Yeah. So I went through Karen, and then even when I got out of Karen, we had the program set up for me not to fail, so
Sure.
I had to go to AA. I had a not physical, but a psychologist, psychologist, health coach. And then I had to blow in the breathalyzer 3 times a day for a year. So I was begrudged on that. I would say, honestly, I got through Karen, I got through home, I got through a year of blowing this thing every 8 hours. And then once I got over that, I still wasn't done, or it didn't believe or didn't buy into. I was sober, but I wasn't buying into it. And honestly, it was a family business. We got towards the end, and we decided we were going to sell the company. My father and I were going to sell the company. My dad was getting retirement, and honestly, they weren't sure on my sobriety yet, and they weren't sure if they could hang their retirement on me because if I go off the deep end, they're going to have to do something different for retirement. It was a hard truth, a very hard truth to hear, but it was one of those where this is over. What are you going to do? And that's when I started asking myself, like, really, it's like, I can go back to drinking. I can, it's right there. Is that what I want? And I mean, when I went to that retreat down in Costa Rica, and the intention was, who have I become? And I started asking myself, who have I become? And here I'm thinking in my head, I'm this great boss, I'm a fantastic brother, a great friend. Well, I started looking at it. It's like, my sisters live in Colorado and Montana. I haven't been to visit my one in Colorado ever. The one sister in Montana, it's been 7 years. I'm a great brother, and truthfully, and not unkindly, but just, who have I become? And it's like, I didn't like what I seen. I didn't I didn't like how I was short. I was angry, and I didn't, and in my mind, I'm this nice guy, and who I am action wise isn't that nice, doesn't have time to take a phone call. If you're not on my schedule, you're not going to talk to me, So it was just like, I didn't like that. And that was the process. I mean, I
So
got out of.
So I know that Amy with Feinberg Consulting has been coaching you in this, and she recommended the program in Costa Rica, right? As a transition to go through some sort of retreat or intensive to see where you are, right?
Well, so how Amy got into the mix when I left the program, I left Karen. Amy was helping our family with aftercare. She was helping implement, like, when my parents have a party, how do they react when I come in? Everybody's drinking, and it's like, so it was just a help for the entire family. That's continued to this day. So it's on 5 years every Friday.
That's amazing.
Conversation.
You know how many families do not do that? And I want to go back and say that's a very foundation of probably why you're at where you are now, because you've gone through all of this time with your family in coaching, which strengthens your sobriety and strengthens your relationships, right?
It has done so much for our family. I mean, that's the thing. It's like my getting sent to rehab helped bring our family together so much more. We talk every week, and we talk about things, because you don't talk about why did you drink, not normally, but we do. It's because I'm scared someone's going to see the real me or whatever. So it just makes our conversations that much deeper, and it really kind of gets rid of the BS, and we can talk about our actual emotions, our feelings, what's important to us. And I mean, ultimately, that's the choice, right? You can have the choice of alcohol and fun, or you can work hard and have connections and live with love, be held accountable. It's like, which one do you want? And at the end of the day, I mean, that's when people say you have to make the decision for yourself. It is a decision that you have to make for yourself, but I don't want to discount just going through the motions, and going every day because you just show up, and that's who you, and then who knows? I don't know when that change happened, because something happened 5 years ago, and who I am today, what happened, and it's like.
And it is a process. And even though you walked out of that room that day of the intervention, I am certain that those letters were so heartfelt coming from your family that made you start thinking a little bit more about your relationship with them, relationships with other people. But I know how some of those letters go with family members, and they are to the heart, the core, where a lot of times we don't say as family members what we want to say or need to say until somebody says, hey, can you write this down?
On that, I was so angry at that meeting. I'm not sure I heard them, but them opening up, it's kind of like the door, right? They open the door, and how far it opens is up to you. And it's like, that was a sliver, and that's what I opened up into. That's the love. That's what I said yes to. I said yes to that, and you're right. And I think the important part about staying on the journey is to reread those letters in times when, hey, that beer looks pretty good. It's like, those are the things that you have to set up with a good program. If you have a healthy relationship with your higher power, I mean, those are the things that you have to implement every day to remind you that you don't want to go down that, So you're right. They're incredibly important.
So now, today, you're engaged, getting married, baby on the way.
Yeah.
It's so exciting. And you have a full life you talk about love. You mentioned that just a few minutes ago. Now you have the love of your life and a baby who, when this baby is born, is going to be so incredible in your eyes. You are sober that you will be present to this baby and to your wedding and your marriage and whatever support you continue to get throughout the process, because it is a lifetime process for all of us, whether we are alcoholic, substance use disorder, drugs or anything. We as human beings need a process to continue to grow in ourselves, to understand where we've been and where do we want to be. And being present instead of running is one of the first steps, right?
Yeah, and that's the key right there. Is it's not a destination of you're sober and you're just going to be good. It's the practice. It's the practice of being sober. It's the journey of being sober that leads. I didn't plan on being in Costa Rica, not at all, not even at all. But the thing is, once you open yourself up and you allow things to happen, it's beautiful how it can unfold, and it can unfold. And that's why I say it's so important not to be fixated on the destination, because along the journey, you might have a different one that's even better, So it's like, for me, the whole thing it's turning my life into everyday practice of being sober. So it's really, it's a beautiful thing, but it's a full-time job. Like,
Sure.
I'm retired, but that's what I do. I just work on myself. I do things that make me happy, that make me feel good, that inspire me, and that's what I do, and I have to do that every day, or else I'll just get stagnant and I could go backwards. I don't want to, but
yeah, it's a daily practice for sure. So speaking of practice, before we leave, can you let others know what is it in your life that you're every day? What are some of the things that you do, your tools that you do to help yourself stay sober and live the life that is so beautiful?
So I do have a checklist, and I run through this. I pray, 6-egg breakfast, workout, do abs, work out my leg, I broke my leg, protein shake, gratitude, intentions. Every day I read, I floss, and I study Spanish for an hour.
Nice.
And they change, right? They change, but it's just consistent. I think the most important is to pray and to write down your intentions for the day and what you're grateful for. I think those are huge. And they can change, they can change, but it's bigger goal. I mean, that was another thing. People in my life, living in Costa Rica is a beautiful thing, but it can be lonely, and for me, who has helped me out? And this year, actually, I had this thing where I wrote 10 people that why they're important to me, why I would like to continue our conversation and schedule a phone call once a month, So I have 10 phone calls with 10 people once a month for an hour, and they're mentors. One of them's my health coach, but they're just people, they're good friends. And the connections, like, where are you at in life? Check in, how you doing? And it's just a talk. So to me, holding myself accountable every day with the people I love, it's just, you're living your amends, it's a beautiful thing.
Well, I really appreciate you sharing from the bottom of your heart, your soul, and every day you make a difference in people's lives by sharing your story, sharing your life, sharing who you are, because you're an amazing young man. And I wish you all the best. And thank you again for being here. Thank you for joining the conversation today. If you are seeking help for yourself or a loved one, please reach out to our Feinberg Consulting team at 248-538-5425. That's 248-538-5425. And check out our website at feinbergcare.com. I'm grateful for our guests and all who have joined us today. Make sure you follow us on Apple, Spotify, or anywhere you listen to podcasts.